Imagine a doctor, right, navigating this high-definition camera through a dark, twisting, totally collapsed tunnel inside your body.
Sounds intense just thinking about it.
It is. I mean, it's this highly sensitive, incredibly delicate procedure where finding a millimeter-wide anomaly could quite literally save your life.
Yeah, the stakes are massive.
Exactly. But now, imagine that entire multi-million-dollar medical procedure is instantly derailed, just completely ruined by a single drop of water.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Today, we are looking at the 2-cent piece of plastic that prevents that from happening.
It really reframes how we think about medical miracles, honestly. We picture the operating room as this, I don't know, cathedral of modern science, right?
Right, with all the glowing screens.
Exactly. Where massive state-of-the-art machinery is doing all the heavy lifting, but the reality is often much more mechanical. It's much more grounded in microscopic physical barriers.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We are thrilled to have you with us. Yes, you, our fellow endlessly curious learner.
Always glad to be here.
We are taking a magnifying glass to one of these tiny, seemingly mundane pieces of medical equipment today. We're exploring an excerpt from a really detailed YouTube video by Dr. Gautamekala S. Raju.
A fantastic resource.
It really is.
Yeah.
The video is titled 8cc 1475 34D FB Removal Cap. And through this specific source material, our mission today is to uncover how a few millimeters of plastic and the incredibly precise positioning of a microscopic hole dictate the physics of an entire procedure before the endoscope even enters a patient.
Which is such a fascinating shift in perspective. I mean, we are talking about the endoscope cap. On paper, it sounds incredibly basic.
Just the cap.
Right, just a cap. But the mechanics of how this cap is placed, how it's aligned and utilized, it provides a masterclass in spatial awareness, fluid dynamics, and just anatomical problem solving.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because going into a routine procedure like, say, a colonoscopy or an esophageal exam, we as patients are completely unaware of this prep work.
Oh, completely blind to it.
We just assume the camera goes in, the lights turn on, and the doctor looks at a screen, right?
Yeah, that's the illusion, yeah.
But Dr. Raju's video immediately shatters that illusion of simplicity. He starts by defining exactly what this tool is. And it's a short plastic cylinder. And it has a single side hole. That's the entire piece of technology.
And before that short plastic cylinder even goes on to the end of the endoscope, a very specific sequence of physical preparations has to happen.
You can't just slap it on there.
No, you don't just snap it on dry like a lid on a coffee cup. The source details that first, the cap must be dipped in water.
Which, I mean, that makes sense when you think about the materials.
Right.
You have a rigid piece of plastic sliding over the tip of a highly sensitive rubber and metal medical instrument.
Exactly.
If you try to force that on dry, the friction could cause microabrasions. Or the cap might just, seize up and not seat properly.
Right.
It needs that liquid lubrication to slide into place.
Yeah, that physical seating is crucial. But then comes a step in Dr. Raju's process that highlights a brilliant paradox in high-tech medicine.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
Before you actually fix the cap firmly onto the end of the scope, you have to turn off the endoscope's light.
There is a deep irony here that I absolutely love. To perfectly calibrate this cutting-edge optical tool, the very first thing the doctor or technician has to do is pull the plug on the power.
You literally have to kill the light to see what you're doing.
What's fascinating here is the sheer reliance on practical human ingenuity to overcome the limits of technology.
Right.
An endoscope light is blindingly intense. I mean, it has to be. Because its job is to illuminate the pitch-black cavern of the human digestive tract.
It's basically a miniature spotlight?
Exactly. So if that light is firing at full power in a well-lit prep room, the glare bouncing off the plastic cap makes it physically impossible for the human eye to distinguish the tiny millimeter-wide features on the tip of the scope. It makes me think of trying to perfectly align a glass screen protector on a smartphone.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Like while you're standing outside in the glaring noon sun with the screen brightness turned all the way up.
You wouldn't be able to see a thing. You can't. You can't actually see the physical edges of the glass or the tiny cutout for the camera lens. You are just fighting the glare.
Yeah, you have to turn the screen completely dark so your eyes can actually perceive the physical structure of what you are holding.
That is a perfect parallel. The doctor has to see the physical architecture of the endoscope tip because it is incredibly crowded on there.
Very crowded. You have the camera lens, the water jet nozzle, and crucially, the biopsy channel.
And that's the hollow tube where tools are passed through, right?
Exactly. Finding that biopsy channel in the dark is step one. because knowing exactly where that channel is dictates the geometry for the entire procedure.
The source outlines what I'm going to call the golden rule of cap placement, the 12 and 6 o'clock rule.
A very strict rule.
Dr. Raju is incredibly specific about this in the video. The single-side hole on that plastic cap cannot be placed arbitrarily.
No, it has to be exact. It must be positioned exactly at the opposite end of the biopsy channel. So if you're looking directly at the tip of the endoscope, and the biopsy channel is positioned right at 12 o'clock.
That side hole in the cap has to be dead center at 6 o'clock.
So why is that? Why not 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock?
This is where we dive into the microscopic battle against fluid dynamics.
Oh boy.
Inside a confined space like the colon or the stomach, fluid is a constant obstacle. There is water being pumped in by the scope to clear debris, and there are, natural bodily fluids.
Makes sense.
If the scope is positioned so that the fluid naturally flows toward the biopsy channel, what the medical field calls the dependent position, the doctor has an easy solution. They just use the biopsy channel to vacuum that fluid away.
Wait, I'm stuck on this idea of a dependent position.
Okay.
If the intestine is a twisting, turning organic tube, how does the doctor even know what down or 6 o'clock is once the scope is 3 feet inside the body?
That's a really good question.
Is gravity doing the work here, or is
Yeah.
this relative to the camera lens?
It is entirely about gravity relative to the scope's current orientation.
Well, I see.
As the doctor navigates the twists and turns of the intestine, the scoop physically rotates. Down is constantly changing.
So down is just whatever's pointing at the floor.
Right. The dependent position is simply whatever part of the scope is closest to the floor at that exact moment, because that is where gravity will pull the pooling water.
Okay, so what happens when the scope rotates, and suddenly the biopsy channel is facing the ceiling, and that side hole on the plastic cap is pointing at the floor?
Well, the fluid naturally flows down to that side hole.
Ah. And because of the physical design of the cap, the fluid automatically drains out through that hole,
Yes, it gives the water an escape route.
leaving the camera lens completely clear. But let's dig into the physics of why that hole is necessary at all. I mean, why wouldn't the water just fall off the tip of the scope on its own?
2 words for you: surface tension.
Oh, right. Like water beating up on a windshield.
Exactly. Water molecules love to stick to each other, and they love to stick to smooth surfaces like a glass lens.
Yeah.
If you just have a solid plastic rim around the camera and the water flows down to the bottom, the surface tension causes it to pool. It forms a tiny dome of water directly over the lens.
And suddenly, the doctor's intense surgical light hits that dome of water, refracting the light and turning the high-definition monitor into a blurry funhouse mirror.
Which is exactly what you don't want when looking for a polyp. That 6 o'clock hole acts as mechanical brake in the surface tension. It allows gravity to pull the water droplet away from the glass and out the side.
So you have two completely opposite complementary systems managing the fluid.
Mm-hmm.
The 12 o'clock channel actively vacuums water up. The 6 o'clock hole passively drains water out.
Exactly.
But if those two things are clustered together, say a technician places the hole at 1 o'clock right next to the 12 o'clock channel, you've clustered all your fluid management on one side of the lens.
And if gravity pulls the water to the opposite side, where there is no hole and no suction, the water just sits there, the lens clouds over. The doctor is essentially flying blind inside the patient.
Which brings me to a detail in the source material that I really have to push back on, or at least ask for clarity on, because it alarmed me.
Uh-oh. What's that?
Dr. Raju explicitly notes that it is not uncommon for technicians to just slap the cap on the scope without focusing on this 12 and 6 o'clock alignment.
Yeah, that happened.
But how is that possible?
Yeah.
We just established that a clouded lens could mean missing a dangerous polyp. How is such a fundamental physics-based step so easily ignored in a highly professional medical setting?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we are dealing with the realities of human habituation, and really the normalization of deviance.
Normalization of deviance, wow.
In a busy clinic, a technician might prep 30 or 40 endoscopes in a single shift. When you perform the same manual task repetitively, especially one that involves just sliding a plastic sleeve onto a tube, the brain automates the movement.
You stop seeing a meticulously engineered fluid management system, and you just see cap goes on scope.
Right. So they skip the precise alignment step once, nothing catastrophic happens. Maybe the doctor just deals with a slightly blurry screen or assumes the patient's prep was poor.
And the technician unconsciously learns that the alignment doesn't really matter.
That is the exact mechanism of human error in complex systems. But Dr. Raju's video serves as a hard reset for that complacency.
For sure.
He makes it clear that ignoring this microscopic mechanical detail, like placing a hole at 5 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock, literally destroys the clear vision required for safe navigation.
It's a powerful reminder that the most sophisticated digital optical sensor on the planet is utterly useless if a 2-cent piece of plastic traps a single drop of water in front of it.
That makes complete sense when you put it that way.
So we've outsmarted the fluid dynamics. The light was off, we found the 12 o'clock biopsy channel, and we locked the side hole perfectly at 6 o'clock.
The lens is going to stay crystal clear.
But keeping the camera clear is just the passive observation phase of the procedure. Once you have clear vision, you suddenly have a new problem.
Right, because you have to actually do something.
Exactly. You can see the polyp, but you are inside a collapsed, slippery tunnel. How do you hold the walls back to actually do the surgery?
We move from rotational alignment into a game of linear depth adjustment.
And this is the moment the cap transforms from a passive windshield wiper into an active structural tool. It becomes a physical extension of the doctor's hands inside the body.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The source breaks down how the cap is adjusted linearly, pushing it further out off the tip of the scope for different types of missions.
Missions is a good word for it.
For a standard screening colonoscopy, Dr. Raju says he typically keeps about 1 to 2 millimeters of the cap's rim visible past the lens. It's barely a sliver of plastic.
At 1 to 2 millimeters, its primary job is maintaining focal distance.
Because it's too close otherwise. Exactly. The colon isn't a rigid pipe. It's soft, wet, mucosal tissue that constantly wants to collapse inward. That tiny rim of plastic prevents the camera lens from getting smushed directly into the pink tissue of the intestinal wall.
It's less like a camera focus and more like putting a tiny, clear plastic bumper on the front of your car.
I like that.
You use it so you don't scratch the headlights when you pull up a little too close to the garage wall. It just gives you that tiny buffer of space.
Yeah, that's spot on.
But then if the procedure gets more demanding, that depth changes dramatically. The source mentions that if you need to remove foreign bodies, and Dr. Raju specifically uses the wonderfully visceral phrase, impacted meatballs, you push the cap out to 3 or 4 millimeters.
An impacted meatball is a colloquial term for a food bolus.
Which is what exactly?
Imagine someone swallowing a large piece of poorly chewed steak, and it gets physically wedged in the esophagus. It is blocking everything, and it has to come out. To grab it, the doctor extends that plastic cap out 3 or 4 millimeters, creating a deep, hollow cylinder at the end of the scope.
Like swapping out the attachments on a vacuum cleaner.
Oh, yes.
If you just have the flat hose, you can't get a good grip on a heavy, awkward object. But if you put on an attachment that creates a deeper cup, you can press it against the object, form a tight seal, and use the suction power to hold it.
That is the exact physical mechanism. By extending the cap, the doctor creates a physical cup. They press that cup against the impacted food bolus, apply powerful suction through the scope, and grab the object without it slipping away down the digestive tract.
That's brilliant.
And to ensure that extended cap doesn't slide back under the pressure, the source notes it is often secured tightly to the scope with silicone tape.
The source also mentions swapping it out for a band ligator cap in these situations. What is that?
A band ligator cap is a specialized, slightly longer and wider plastic cap. It was originally designed for a different procedure, entirely tying off bleeding veins with tiny rubber bands. But because it has that deeper, wider cup shape, doctors cleverly repurpose it as a heavy-duty suction cup for extracting massive, stubborn food blockages.
So, just by pushing a piece of plastic out 2 extra millimeters, or swapping for a slightly deeper cup, you completely change the physical physics of the tool.
It's extremely adaptable.
It goes from an observation camera to a heavy-duty extraction crane.
Essentially, yes.
But the source takes it even further, detailing how this 3 to 4 millimeter depth is used for complex resections, removing dangerous polyps.
Right.
And it highlights 2 incredibly difficult anatomical locations, the ileocecal valve and low rectal polyps near the dentate line. Why are these specific spots so tricky?
Because you are fighting the body's natural architecture.
How so?
Let's look at the ileocecal valve. This is the anatomical doorway where the small intestine meets the large intestine. It is not just a passive tube. It is a tight muscular sphincter that constantly wants to snap shut to prevent backflow.
Oh, so it's actively working against the doctor.
Yes. If a doctor spots a polyp growing right on the lip of that valve, they have to somehow perform delicate microscopic surgery while a muscular door is actively trying to close on their instruments.
That sounds like a nightmare.
The dentate line in the anal canal presents a similar challenge. It is cramped, highly sensitive, angular terrain.
And the source notes that by extending the cap out to 3 or 4 millimeters, the doctor can physically sit on the valve. They use the plastic to create what Dr. Raju calls an open field.
Which is an incredible display of spatial problem-solving under pressure.
I can't even imagine.
Imagine trying to build a ship in a bottle, but the bottle is made of wet rubber and keeps trying to crush your hands.
Well, thanks.
By pushing that firm plastic rim out a few millimeters, the doctor wedges it against the muscular walls of the ileocecal valve. They're using this tiny plastic cylinder as a structural pillar to hold the sealing up, keeping the muscle from snapping shut.
That's wild.
They prop the space open, creating a miniature, stable surgical theater right there in the dark.
If you're listening to this and you've ever had a stomachache from a cramped intestine, imagine the physical tension of that cramp. The doctor is feeling that exact tension, that resistance from the tissue transmitted through a tube that is several feet long.
And they are relying on 3 millimeters of taped-on plastic to hold that cramping muscle at bay, so they have room to swing their tiny surgical snares and slice the polyp off safely.
It requires an immense level of tactile feedback and physical intuition. The doctor isn't just watching a monitor. They are feeling the architecture of the organ.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to a crucial caveat at the very end of the source material. We have spent this entire deep dive talking about how vital this cap is. You have perfectly managed the fluid dynamics with the 6 o'clock hole.
Right.
You have dialed in the exact millimeter depth to structurally wedge open a valve. You have meticulously lubricated it and secured it with silicone tape. You are ready for the mission.
A tremendous amount of physical preparation.
And then Dr. Raju said, sometimes you just have to take it off and throw it away.
Ah, yes. The ultimate lesson in medical reality.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The terrain dictates the tactics.
The source points out that the cap, simply by existing, adds extra diameter to the endoscope. It makes the tip of the camera slightly bulkier.
Exactly.
And if the doctor is navigating the scope and suddenly encounters a narrow, highly angulated sigmoid colon, especially one with severe diverticulosis, that extra millimeter of bulk instantly transforms from an asset into a massive liability.
To understand why, we have to look at what severe diverticulosis physically does to the body.
Okay, what does it do?
Normally, the colon is a flexible, accommodating tube. But with severe diverticulosis, the walls develop these small, inflamed pouches. Over time, the tissue becomes thickened, scarred, and fixed in place.
It loses its stretch.
Exactly. It's like a flexible garden hose transforming into a stiff, dried-out, zigzagging PVC pipe. The angles become incredibly sharp, and the tissue loses its ability to flex.
So, wait, what does this all mean? You spend all this time perfectly calibrating your structural wedge to remove a polyp you know is deeper in the colon, but you encounter this stiff, zigzagging pipe halfway there. Why abandon the tech entirely?
This raises an important question about adaptability. Because rigidity is dangerous, adaptability is paramount.
Okay.
A lesser practitioner might look at the screen and think, well, I spent all this time prepping this cap, and I really need it for the polyp extraction later, so I'm just going to push the slightly wider scope through this narrow disease section.
Which sounds like a bad idea.
A very bad idea. Forcing a bulky plastic tip through an unyielding, sharp angle of the colon drastically increases the risk of friction, tissue tearing, and ultimately perforating the colon wall, which is a life-threatening complication.
So the doctor has to recognize the physical reality in real time. They're looking at the sharp angulation, sensing the stiff, unyielding nature of the diverticulosis, and calculating that the millimeter of plastic that was supposed to help them hold an open field later on is currently preventing them from safely entering the area at all.
Exactly. The ultimate skill of a master endoscopist isn't just knowing how to perfectly utilize technology. It's having the humility and the situational awareness to recognize when the patient's unique internal anatomy demands that you abandon the technology altogether.
Wow.
If the terrain dictates that the tool is a hindrance, you strip the cap off and you rely solely on the slim, bare scope to navigate the treacherous path safely.
It is a brilliant encapsulation of the art of medicine, balancing the strict science of medicine. You have to understand the microscopic surface tension and the 12 and 6 o'clock water drainage perfectly. You have to master the spatial geometry of wedging open an ileocecal valve with 3 millimeters of plastic perfectly. And you must be totally, instantly willing to throw all of that preparation in the trash the second you encounter a scarred, narrow colon that says, "No, not today."
It is a constant, high-stakes physical negotiation with the human body, and the variables are measured in fractions of an inch.
So, to summarize the microscopic journey we've been on today, we started completely in the dark, pulling the plug on a blindingly bright surgical light, just to see the physical canvas we were working on.
A necessary first step.
We perfectly aligned our plastic side hole at 6 o'clock, creating a mechanical drain to break the surface tension and outsmart the body's fluid dynamics. We dialed in the depth, adjusting by a mere 1 or 2 millimeters to transition our tool from a clear plastic bumper into a heavy-duty vacuum cup, and finally, into a structural wedge capable of holding back the muscular doorway of the intestines.
It's an incredible evolution for a single piece of plastic.
And we learned that true masterful practice means knowing exactly when that extra fraction of an inch requires you to strip the cap off entirely to protect a fragile, angulated colon.
It really is a remarkable sequence of invisible physical decisions that dictate the outcome of the entire procedure.
It absolutely is. And for you listening, I really hope this deep dive changes how you view these kinds of medical interventions.
I know it changed my view.
The next time you, or someone you love, undergo what the medical system blithely calls a routine procedure, remember that the word routine is doing a monumental amount of heavy lifting.
Oh, for sure.
Beneath that calm, clinical surface, there's an entire hidden world of micro-adjustments happening. There is complex spatial problem-solving, real-time physics calculations fighting surface tension, and an incredibly delicate physical dance between human anatomy and carefully calibrated plastic, all happening behind the scenes to keep you safe.
The invisible design is constantly at work, but it only functions because it is being managed by human hands that know exactly how to manipulate it.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder, bringing it all the way back to that alarming detail Dr. Raju mentioned about the prep technicians.
Right, the alignment issue.
He explicitly noted that it is not uncommon for the people whose sole job it is to prep this equipment to routinely miss that crucial 12 and 6 o'clock alignment, forcing the doctor to personally intervene, double-check, and correct the physics before starting.
It's a sobering thought.
It really makes you think about the inherent fragility of our highly automated systems. How much of our modern high-stakes success actually relies on the constant, vigilant human oversight of seemingly standard equipment.
More than we'd like to admit, probably.
If a simple 2-cent plastic cap on a life-saving medical camera requires manual microscopic verification to prevent complete failure, how many other invisible millimeter-sized details in the massive technological systems of our daily lives dictate whether everything works perfectly or completely falls apart the second we stop paying attention?
It certainly makes you view the mundane, automated details of the world around you with a lot more scrutiny.
It sure does. Keep questioning the details, keep looking for the invisible physics, and we will see you next time.